February, I'm wearing a jean dress. It's not warm enough to wear a jean dress. I'm trying to beckon the spring weather by wearing spring clothing, even though I would not wear this outside because it's way too cold. This is from Forever 21. It's a jean dress. I wasn't sure if I was going to buy it, but it looked really cute. And this is also from Forever 21. It's a crop top, you cannot tell, and that is Laura doing fashion. So, yep, that's the last of that. When this goes up, but I'm going to talk about the best books that I read in 2015. I started doing this and I thought I should just commit to it. I read a lot of books in 2015. My goal was to read 60 books and I read 75, and that is excellent. The first book that I read of 2015 was The Cuckoo's Calling by J.K. Rowling. I mean Robert Galbraith. And I loved it. This kind of got me into like, I should read more mysteries, let's read more mysteries. And then I read the second book, which was The Silkworm by Robert Galbraith, and also really loved it. Next book that I really enjoyed reading was Like Water-Free Chocolate by Laura Esquirel. Oh, totally butchering that. It is part cookbook and part novel, and it's super romantic. And it was wonderful and magical, and I loved it a lot. The next book I read was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and this was the first Maya Angelou book that I read, and it kind of follows her life from being a child to up to the age of 18 when she has her kid. It's beautifully written, and it's a great story, and I learned a lot. The next book, which is a play, was The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. I like reading plays because sometimes when you're in a slump you just kind of want to complete something. Plays, also graphic novels, are great for that. So I read The Glass Menagerie because I was interested in it, and it was really great. It had this very kind of dreamlike quality, and it kind of reminded me of the Virgin Suicides because it also had that very dreamlike atmosphere. The next book I read was How to Build a Girl by Caitlin Moran. I really enjoyed this. I don't know if it would be under YA or adult, but it follows this girl who's kind of like discovering who she is and trying to figure out her place in the world, and like after, it's kind of broken up into I believe 3 parts if I remember correctly, or 2, and after each part she kind of like reflects back, and I could see maybe some people not liking that, but that really worked for me, and it was just a really great kind of self-discovery, learning about yourself book. The next book I read was Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. This is a children's book, and it's an autobiography, and it is also poetry. All of those things, and it's wonderful. I don't know, I feel like I'm not that aware of what's out there for children's literature right now, but I feel like there's probably not a lot of autobiographies and like that's written in poetry for kids, and this is just so exciting and interesting, and I kind of just want to like hand this book out to like people and be like, read this, it's amazing, read this, it's amazing. It was amazing. The next book I read was The Book of Unknown Americans by Cristina Henriquez, and it's great because what I really loved about it, because it combines, it's a fictional book, but it contains true stories of people who have immigrated to America from South America, and just kind of like little snippets into their lives at the beginning of each chapter, and I just love that. I love combining the two worlds of nonfiction and fiction and kind of playing with that. The next book was another Maya Angelou book. It was Mom and Me and Mom. It specifically focuses on her relationship with her mother. Her mother was a very fascinating woman who did a lot of things and just kind of like never took no as an answer, and just kind of like was like, hey, I'm interested in this. Who cares if I'm like maybe older than a person that would normally kind of enter this field? I'm just gonna do it. And it was just really wonderful. The next was Vivian versus the Apocalypse by Katie Coyle. It's awesome. It's about Vivian and her friend, and the apocalypse happens, or maybe it didn't happen. People disappear, and she kind of is searching for her parents. It's like a tale of friendship and adventure and like hardcore lady times, and it was wonderful. The next book is More Than This by Patrick Ness, and this was really fascinating. When I read the first page, I was like, yes, this is gonna be great. Near the end, I wasn't really sure. I'm kind of still undecided whether I liked how it ended, but it was a really fascinating book. Next book was one that I was very excited because I didn't know it was going to exist until like probably a month until it came out, which was Hold Me Closer, the Tiny Cooper story by David Levithan. So in Will Grayson, which was written by John Green and David Levithan, there's a character called Tiny Cooper, and in it he wrote a play, but you don't really get to see the play, and I always thought, you know, I really want to see this play. It sounds excellent. I really wish like David Levithan would like write it. Years later he did, and I didn't know this was gonna happen. I think I saw it on Tumblr maybe a month before it came out, and I got it at the library. It was just a complete joy to read. The next book was Matilda by Roald Dahl, and I don't know why I had never read this book before because I read a lot of Roald Dahl growing up, and it's about a girl who loves reading and can do magic, so that's like totally right up my alley for a little younger me and for current me. Next book that I read was Americanha by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and I had been wanting to read something by her for a while now, and I just kind of picked Americanha. But it's quite a thick book, but it was wonderful and it did not feel long. It's a great examination of like different cultures and life, and it's just beautifully written, and I loved it, and I will be reading more of her in the future. The next book that I read was We Were Liars by Lockhart. I read it in 2 sittings, and if I had time I would have totally read it in 1 sitting, but it was fascinating, and it's great to kind of go into this book knowing nothing because it's kind of hard to explain, but it has this kind of mystery, old money, preppy vibe, if that makes sense, and it was fantastic, and I loved it a lot. And if you read We Were Liars and you've read other books with that same kind of atmosphere and that same genre, recommend them to me because I want to read more of that. The next book that I read was Zadie Smith on beauty, and I had read White Teeth earlier in the year, and I think I was just not in the mood to read White Teeth, but I was totally in the mood to read On Beauty by Zadie Smith. It's beautifully written. The next book that I read was The End of Your Life Book Club by William Schwalbe. Probably butchering it. And it's about William Schwalbe and his mother, who is diagnosed with cancer, and they are both readers and they've always talked about books, but as he's taking her to her like 2 doctor's appointments, they just kind of start this book club where they start kind of telling each other what books they should read and discussing the books that they're reading. And he writes about this time, and if you like reading books about books, this is for you. It's also very sad, obviously, because it deals with a dying parent and cancer, but it's beautiful. The next 2 books that I read was Anne of Green Gables and Anne on Avonlea by Ellen Montgomery, because this was in June, I think, or July, where I was like, I'm just gonna read books by Canadian authors because I needed to up. I hadn't read a lot. So, and I never read Anne of Green Gables, and it is such a delight. It's such a delightful, fun book. Also, I think my Anne of Green Gables copy is like, it must have been for Americans because it's like, P.I., this magical place is real. And it's like, well, no kidding. Next book that I read was The Year of the Flood by Margaret Atwood, which is actually part of a series, and it's the 2nd book in a 3-part series. And I did not know that. I just kind of went to the library looking for Margaret Atwood, and I picked this up, and I thought it was like, I thought it was a one-off. But it actually works because it's part of this world, but it's focusing on these 1 characters, and you don't really realize. But it's okay. I got the other 2 books. I haven't read them yet, but I really loved The Year of the Flood. I kind of liked the world building it was doing, and again, it was kind of in my dystopian apocalyptic kick that I was having. The next book that I read was also by Margaret Atwood, and it was A Handmaid's Tale. Again, it's dystopian and also fantastic, but I think I liked The Year of the Flood better just because The Handmaid's Tale is more insular because you only you get your story from that one person, and then I feel like Year of Flood, you get it from more multiple perspectives, and at that moment that was just kind of working for me. Bye guys.